a difference in class consciousness and individualized consciousness. And what is going on here today is an attempt to impose on black people an individualized consciousness and to make us believe that by being totally free and disconnected as individuals, we will be free as a people. That is the very opposite of what is going to occur. The more we push for our own unique individual freedom, the more we will come under the domination and oppression of others as a group.
So I want to stop it right there because in my opinion, he came out the gate swinging.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he wasn't holding it back. Whoever clipped this, whoever found this clip, this was a great clip because he came out the gate swinging. So the individualistic mindset versus the group mindset. Well, we know where we are. We always been talking about it. Black America, we have this individualistic mindset, the way we go about doing things. We have brought into the idea of I can conquer this by myself, or I can find my place in the society by myself. And the individual, as he's saying, he's gonna state through this, the individual is not recognized without the group's approval, without the group behind it, without the group support, without belonging to a powerful group. We're talking about power relationships. Those are the relationships between different races and groups of people. It's about power. At the end of the day, in the beginning of the day, it's about power. Who has the most power? Who can dominate the other? We've already talked about that's how the world works. So trying to go against the system behind enemy lines and already 400-500 years of oppression, trying to go at the system as an individual, you're gonna find yourself in a world of trouble instead of us becoming a power base. What you think?
No, yeah, I agree. And I love most of the things that Dr. Amos Wilson puts out, and this is included. Because it's something we struggle with, even when we're talking about racism in general in American society today. You know, people get caught up. We've both said this in previous breakdowns. What people will talk about how they have their one white friend, and their one white friend, are their one or two white friends, are their few white associates, disprove the notion of racist supremacy.
Right.
And it's like, no, you're confusing the actions and beliefs of the individual with those of the collective. The collective is something to, and this is why you say it all the time, Joe. This is a team sport. Racism is a team sport. Life is a team sport. It doesn't matter about the beliefs of the individuals if those individuals are outliers from their group. And a lot of us into those outliers and begin to think that with a group, this is the same reason why when we're having these conversations and people are like, we just need to have the conversation. I'm always like, the conversation doesn't change anything, because what ends up happening is, you have a solid conversation with a white person, and then to that white person, you become the outlier. It doesn't change their view of the entire group. It changes their view of you.
Right. But as in the context of what Dr. Amos Wilson is saying, that their lens of that individual is just seen as a one-off, like you said, an outlier, a one-off, somebody who's just out here by themselves, somebody who has done something different, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
It's not in relation to the group, but that person there, you have no power. You have no, you may have a bit of influence, but you don't have no real influence to actually make real things happen in the world or real changes for your group in the world. Having real influence in the real sense of the word, having real influence is about being able to either resist the influence or the power of other people, or impose your influence or power on another group of people. And we're in a position to do neither.
Right.
Because too many individualistic mindsets, because we keep saying we got to work as a group, but also in saying that, and in this breakdown, we understand that everybody, once again, everybody is not going to be down with coming together as a collective. But if we get enough of us, if we get enough of the like-minded people, we can do something.
Well, to that, I mean, this is one thing we got to understand, right? You can't create change by yourself. You can't. Somebody, you've got to gather together a group of people. Now, you could say you're at the lead of that group and everybody's following you, and that's very well possible. But you can't continuously be pushing people away and isolating yourself and thinking that you're going to change the world. That's not the way groups work. They're group psychology, group sociology, all of these different studies, fields of human science that look at human behavior show us that that's not the way the world works. Right. And when you separate yourself from the group, like you said, you isolate yourself and you become easy prey. We're a social species. We look at the group to provide us strength and support. And we all need strength and support. Nobody is an island. Nobody is totally free and isolated. We all need somebody. So when you step away from the group, you become an easy target for other groups who don't like your group or any of these other things. This could be a whole conversation in and of itself.
Right. Well, all I say before we move on, all I say is name me one successful leader from the past, present, that we talk about that was able to be successful on their own. Name me the successful leader. Name me the legendary leader, the talked about leader that was able to mark their place in history by themselves.
Now, I was gonna say, let me caveat that, right? Not caveat it, but let me point out a connection, because I've said that before, and people will say such and such entertainer or such and such athlete. Look, as far as entertain, like the discussion about whether or not entertainers and athletes should be our leaders is a separate discussion. But the fact of the matter is, all of those people had coaches, had fans, had staff, had people that
nobody done it by themselves.
Right. People look, when a rapper produces an album and that album goes gold, 500,000 people bought that album. They didn't go gold by themselves.
But it's a whole team behind the scenes to help them produce the music.
Right, but even to that, because a lot of people will say, well, nowadays you got people out there like J. Cole that can make his own beats, lace his own tracks, and mix them down there. Yeah, all that's true. But the marketing aspect, he's not doing all of the marketing.
I was gonna say, don't he got a deal? Ain't he signed to a label?
Right.
That's the group.
And even when you look at people like Chance the Rapper, who came up off his mixtape, or Nicki Minaj, all of the people that bought their mixtapes and talked about them to other people to get them to buy them, they didn't do it by themselves.
But and even in talking about like conquerors of the world, like real people who made real change, people who were able to like really conquer, colonize others, or take over somebody else's land, or make some kind of social political change, like real change. They all had organizations or groups of support behind them. So you got to move as basically what break it down. We just move. You got to move as a damn unit. All right, move as a unit. We got to be a unit and move as a unit. Trying to operate as individuals, as we can see, ain't helping. And just look at our past. We made a lot of progress, or any progress that we could have made, or any progress that we did made, it was group efforts. They might have had a figurehead, but it was group efforts. So let's move forward.
There is no ultimate individual freedom, ladies and gentlemen, as black people, if there is not group freedom. The powerless individual is not seen as an individual anyway. That is why we talk about what? Stereotyping. That is why the slave master, our masters calls us what? Field hands. Not individuals. Workers. Laborers. Because there's what? A category of people there.
Now, hold on.
We only bother to...
I want to say this because there's also this movement growing amongst the younger generations, not just blacks, the younger generations across the spectrum. This movement to get rid of labels and categories, right?
Yeah.
That too goes against human nature. These things are not made up to oppress. They're made up because human beings are social creatures that naturally group together with like people and form identities
Right.
that
Right.
allow us to quickly identify each other as friend or foe. That's how this works. So when you start talking about, well, and then when he goes into saying there is no individual without the group, that's very much true. The two are, it's a symbiotic relationship. One can't
Right.
exist without the other. The group gives the individual
Their
strength,
identity.
purpose, identity, protection, and everything else. And the individual gives the group variety, specialty, and all of these other things that enhance the purpose of the group.
What
But both have to be recognized.
but also think about tying into kind of like what we was talking about last week. Okay. One of the things that we talk about as black people is finding who we are.
Mm-hmm.
Going back and remembering who we are, but that goes to a group identity though.
Mm-hmm.
That goes to
Trying to
group
find our group.
consciousness. Right. Trying to find our tribe, where we come from, the people that we come from. So once again, it's reinforcing that we have to operate as a unit. Rather, it doesn't matter like all of this other stuff that we kind of put in. When you have a lot of barriers in our place, self-inflicted barriers, because a lot of people, they can't get egos out of the way, or they can't um realize that you might not be a good leader for this specific situation or whatever. But damn it, I'm kind of frustrated a bit, but damn it, we got to get the stuff out of the way. We got to get over the humps, because we're in dire situations now where we're literally we have a situation where Black Americans are literally crying and upset about a situation that we have no power to change, because we refuse to operate as a group. We're mad as a collective of individuals, but as a group, we have no plans in place and aren't working on no plans to better our situation.
Well, and see, this is where we go to the conversation that needs to be had about strength and power, right? The powerful group sets the tone for all of the groups within their
Right,
sphere of influence, right?
right,
Um, and that right now, right, in America, America is a dominantly white dominant society.
hmm
It doesn't matter about the numbers.
right,
Even when white
right.
people become a minority, they're
They still
still
gonna be
going to be
dominant
the
society.
dominant society because they're going to have the most influence, which means that goes back to this term we talked about before about a minority majority. Yeah, they're going
Right,
to be the less amount of the physical people, but they're going to have the major amount of the influence on society. Black people right
right.
now are what we would call a subgroup,
hmm
right?
hmm
Not even that, but being polite, we're going to say black people are what we would call a subgroup, right? We depend on the dominant group to do everything,
For our
including
survival.
right, including lanes of communication. If we really identified as a group and connected as a group and believed in ourselves as a group the way we say we do, what everybody is upset about regarding Kyrie Irving,
It wouldn't be
I'm
an
gonna
issue.
say it, man, it wouldn't, because he wouldn't have shared the message that he shared on a platform like the one he shared it on to cause that controversy. He would have
Yeah.
shared it in a group of people that already identify with him at least closely enough to not have him face this kind of backlash.
We put ourselves in this situation. We put ourselves in this situation because we refuse to do what we need to do for ourselves. But then we crying. That's the main thing about this situation with Kyrie that has me aggravated is I'm hearing a whole bunch of black people who are upset about what's going on. But the most upsetting part is we can't do nothing about it. As a group of people, we can't do anything about it. And we put ourselves in this situation. And once again, we go to our only superpower, which is talking.
The, the most frustrating part about it to me is that we're talking about how upset we are with Kyrie about Kyrie's treatment on the same platforms owned by the same people that got Kyrie in the situation he's in the first place. Now, I'm not saying that I agree with what Kyrie shared or with the information in what he shared, because I don't. I'll say that plain and clear. But I do think that if Kyrie had shared that information in the space of Black people, he wouldn't be facing the backlash. And that becomes my issue, because one of the bigger problems with forming a group, right, is that the individual has to be accountable to the group. And I think that's the part that we struggle with. In the freedom that we're looking for and saying I'm an individual is a freedom from accountability. You don't want nobody else telling you what you can and can't do. Then at the same time, you want to be able to tell other people what they can and can't do. And the world doesn't work like that.
So I'm gonna say this before we move on. So we talked about this, and me and you talked about this on the phone last week, but we had a conversation on our Freedom Train podcast series years ago, and we talked about Black people being careful about the way we encourage people to be punished for things that they say in public. Because as a powerless group, when it comes back to bite us, it's going to come back to bite us worse than it does for the other people. So for years ago, even like before COVID or during COVID, the Karen thing, where somebody say something in public that is deemed racist, you want that person punished. Well, this is the climate that we set. This is the climate that we kind of pushed. This woke climate, this woke stuff that was pushed. It was. Now, once again, nobody agrees with what's happening with Kyrie, but we got to admit, as a group of powerless people, we put ourselves in this position, because we never came together, and we never built, and we never did anything as a group, and we're still not doing it, and nobody still has any real plans in place. But we're gonna talk about that. And B, we kind of help. I'm not saying we're totally responsible. We kind of help set the climate in saying that, hey, whenever somebody says something about us, they should be punished. Especially if they say it in public, they should be punished. Well, we forgot that that's going to go for us too. And when we're punished, we're going to be punished even harsher. So
and then I would say one thing, right? Because this goes into it, right? Because a lot of people are still making comparisons between Kyrie and even Ime Udoka and Brett Favre. And I would say, again, it goes back to this statement of class group consciousness versus individual. Brett Favre is a part of a group.
Yep. And they're protecting him.
And they're protecting him.
They can protect him. They can protect him.
What he did was magnitudes worse.
Right.
Everybody agrees with that.
Right.
But he has the protection of a group, and Kyrie is an individual.
Right. He's